Hello and welcome to another Tuesday at 2. It is Tuesday at 2. Boy, I am starting off slow today, but I am so glad you're here because we are going to be speaking with Asya Grigoryan, and she has an unparalleled background to help others plan for success. She is fluent in 4 languages. Congratulations. And she has worked in the private and international sectors around the world, and she helps people build confidence through the challenges that they have and the times when they have to shift and pivot and be flexible with their lives. Because as we move forward, we have to leave our past behind. And sometimes our skin that we're in just doesn't feel like it fits properly. But I am really excited for everyone to meet Asya, and welcome to Revel Coach's Tuesday at 2. I am Allison Nissen. And along with my sister, Marcy Stout, we are glad you are here. But I want to start with Asya. Can you give us a little bit about your background?
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is an amazing platform, and I hope we can inspire someone today, with our stories. I was thinking to share a little bit my journey of transformation and reinventing myself that I went through. And it really started, as I think of it now, it started way before I even realized that I was on this journey. So I remember myself as a very, young, active, career-oriented, very professional person who was all very oriented at growth and learning, and I always wanted to be the pioneer. I was back in times when I lived in Armenia. I was a pioneer in my field, and I always aspired, to bring some innovative ideas and to implement them. And that's how I saw myself. I loved that life. I remember a time when I was working in 2 places and studying, doing 2 master degrees at the same time. And I don't know how I did it, but all I know is that I was in top 10% of my class. And that gives me an idea that probably it was working out well. So I had all this energy and drive and motivation. So years later, I remember myself as a young mom already. My oldest son was born, and I was very soon back to work. I was in a leadership position. I was the head of HR department at a commercial bank, pretty big commercial bank. And so again, even as a young mom, I was back to work, back to my career. And I very well remember this one story, which I'd like to share. It's about a woman, she was I think she was in her 40s, probably. She walked in my office and she had a resume in her hand. And her resume had hardly a couple of lines. And what she told me, because I used to interview a lot of people for different positions, obviously, in our bank. And she just came in and she said, I graduated from the university a while ago, but then I got married and my children were young, and I never got a chance to work, but I studied really hard. I graduated with excellence. She was an accountant. And now that my children are grown up, I would really like to, pursue my dream, and I would like to work finally. And I said, I was a bit confused, but I said, how old are your children? And, she said, well, my son is 21 and my daughter is 18. And I think that now they are old enough to take care of themselves. And I finally have this time for myself. So I had this kind of a storm of contradicting emotions inside of me, because first I thought, what, 18 and 21? are you serious? And then I felt a lot of respect for this woman who kind of devoted most of her life to her family, and now she finally found the courage, to come out and to pursue her dream. And on the other hand, I could see clearly that she couldn't enter the workforce now, obviously, with all this outdated knowledge from 20 years ago, because everything we live in such a fast-paced world that everything is moving forward, well, very fast. So what I thought was the best solution for that situation, I redirected her to a couple of courses. I said, perhaps you could take this and these courses to just upgrade your knowledge a little bit, and then you can consider coming back and applying for this job. And after she left, I remember very clearly this thought, which was split of a second on the back of my mind. This thought was that, oh my God, this will never happen to me. And guess what? This was exactly what happened to me. Because few years later, we with my family, we decided to take on a different path, a path of being expats. And me and my husband, with our three little kids, we moved to Boston for 2 years, and then we moved to Washington, D.C. for 4 years, and then 4 years later, we were sent on our assignment to Moscow, Russia, for another 4 years. And so I can say that the last 10 years, in last 10 years, there was at least 3 or 4 big major changes in my life. And when I say that I didn't realize this was my journey of reinventing myself, it's because at first I didn't even realize that this is what's happening. I thought, I can take a break. It's okay. I can skip a couple of years, because I was so ahead of my time at the time. I had done a lot of things by a quite young age. And I thought, well, a couple of years is fine. And then obviously, I remember this disconnect between my perception of myself and between what I was becoming, at least. I remember as a young mom, already here in US, in the United States, I would go to a playground still wearing my, business attire, just because I didn't have anything else in my wardrobe. It looked like I have a lot of clothes to wear, but in my mind, I was still that professional person.
Yeah,
and people.
Asya, I love this story because, I had an opportunity to watch your TEDx talk. So I have a little insight to your journey as well. And what's so powerful is that when you get to a place that you can recognize that where you are and where you were, there's power in your own story that you actually can break through to kind of get to another place and then be able to help other women who, this is not a news story. And I find it fascinating when women gain more skills when they stay home and care. The things that women do in the community are just tremendous. And I have had the fortunate view from the working mom perspective and a stay-home mom perspective that I see women of all different types of responsibilities and leadership, but somehow we lose ourselves. And I'd love to know from you if you can share either from your personal point of view of how you got started again, or when you work with clients, what are some tangible things that somebody could do if they have a negative personal perception of their own gap in their resume, and how you kind of coach them to get started?
Right. That's exactly why I decided to share my story, not because I think it's so interesting, but because I realized later that there are so many women out there who can relate to this story. Just by the virtue of life, there are so many things happening that sometimes take us away from our goals and especially professional goals. I did work with some people who had the same challenge, and I think what we necessarily do, we go through the values, we go through what's important to you. It's important to check in with yourself from time to time, at least, to stay on the track, to understand what is important for you. Is this still important? and this is your kind of guiding star guiding star that helps you to stay on your track. And then I would say I always like to work on finding out your strengths, because we often when we are in times of kind of being low and we think that we failed at something, maybe we did a wrong decision, we tend to dig on ourselves and to focus on what went wrong, what did I do wrong, or why did this happen in this way. So I think it's important to look at this from the position of your strengths. What are you good at? What have you, nevertheless, what have you done? Because even in the time of gap, we have so many experiences. And I can give another example. I used to work, she was one of my very first clients, actually. She was a very bright woman who had a very bright professional past. And she had this very big gap, 15 years of not working for a corporate world or anywhere. She was from corporate world. But she had so many experiences that she did for school as a volunteer. She used to be the PTA president for many years, and she launched so many projects. And we went through her values, through her strengths, through what's important for her. And at some point, we arrived to the point where she needed to update her resume, because this is, if you want to go back into work force, right? You need it at some point, either whether it's your LinkedIn profile or you need to have a resume. And she said, where I don't even know where do I start, because it's been 15 years I didn't even do anything. I said, but you did so many things. And I remember this this phrase that she said, oh, but does this matter? I'm just a mom. And that was, I felt like it's not fair, because she did so many amazing things. Maybe perhaps she wasn't paid for them, but it doesn't take away the credit, right? For putting together all these difficult projects. And I said, just put down everything. And since I've seen many CVs and resumes in my life, we'll figure it out. And we worked on that. And after rephrasing it and changing a little bit the format, etc., I remember her face when she looked at it and she saw herself from a completely different angle. She was surprised. She didn't realize she was that person. And imagine, in a couple of months, she called me after we had we worked together. A couple of months later, she just let me know that she found the job that she's so happy with. And
that's wonderful. And I love, you are positioned as a transformation and leadership coach. And what you shared from that story is the transformation comes from you just basically pulling out a belief system that she had of her strengths, her story, and presenting in a way that when she looks in the mirror, she's really proud. So the transformation, she then can go on her own to find her own job. And it's such wonderful work, because sometimes you just need you need a third party to tell you what everybody else sees. And I'm not sure how we equate worth to only one measure, which is monetary. Like if I'm getting paid, then that counts, because there's so much thing, especially like the PTO, like the amount of fundraising. And I know for a fact in corporate America, there's a lot of people that run bad meetings, but because they're the boss, people will come back. And because they're the boss, they will say it still needs to be done. Well, if you run one bad meeting as a PTO leader, no one will come back and you're fundraising by yourself. So there is a leadership component that's so important when you're dealing with 100% volunteers and, within your community on things that people have a lot of opinions of. So navigating that is important.
Exactly. Yes, because it's less, it's more informal kind of structure. There is no subordination. There is nobody's promotion depends on you. So,
yes.
So you need to be a real leader, I guess, to be able to pull this all through, and you need to have the drive to make the things happen. Yes, and I would even argue that the family life, which is it's a bit daring argument, but I would say that it's a big school of leadership as well.
Or certainly every new phase of life.
There are many skills that are you master them as a leader of your small group. Right, of your small team.
Yeah. Well, they always say your children are your teachers. And sometimes these teachers of their children teachers, they really throw you for a loop that you're not really expecting it. Like, I thought we were on plan with this, but they really make you, rethink how you communicate and how you express your nonverbals is what I hear lately.
Right. Everything counts. How you communicate, how you use your nonverbals, how you delegate, how you multitask.
So
yes,
Asya, I'd like to ask a little bit about the growth factor when it comes to leadership that's so separate from the workplace. So, for example, I have been in and out of as a stay-at-home mom. So I was a working mom, and then I chose to be a stay-at-home mom. And then I was forced to be a working mom again. And then I chose to be a stay-at-home mom. And the whole time I kept a growth mindset so that I was continually building on skills that I did not have. But I'm also in the academic field. And so the academic field is less of a hard and rigid type of environment where they value any type of growth that you have, any extra learning that you can master. But so many places that leadership component, it feels like it's missing when you're not in a corporation or when you're not dealing directly with employees. And so how is it best for someone who is in that flexible time of life where they're not necessarily in their career, but they want to stay focused on their leadership potential?
Wow, that's a great question, and I do think that it's still a challenge, because for myself, from my own experience, I think at some point I accepted that perhaps there is no way back, and this is something that I keep saying, that I was so attached to my old narrative, which is a wrong thing to do. Perhaps it's more productive to really accept the situation as it is, and that's the core of the coaching as well, right? Where are you now, and where do you want to be, instead of getting stuck in your past and trying to go back, which doesn't even sound right. We can never step in the same river twice. I love this ancient Greek philosopher Plato said this, and it's a very deep thing, because you are not the same person, and no one is the same, and nothing is the same. Everything is in a constant change, is in a constant movement. So yeah, I would say that keeping up with these leadership skills and staying a leader through all this turmoil of being in and out, it's very hard. But I think I found kind of for myself, I found an answer, and I'm trying also to instill that or to give this message to everybody I work with, is that you can be the leader of your life. You know, this is also a leadership. You can take this responsibility. You can do so many things. And at the end of the day, you can become an entrepreneur, which requires even maybe more leadership than just having those unproductive meetings. I'm just saying, for me, leadership is a very big concept, and it doesn't manifest itself only working in a corporation as a mid-level manager or a CEO. You can be a leader as a PTO president. You can be a leader as a social, entrepreneur, as a philanthropist, but you can be a leader of your life.
That's such a great way of saying it.
If that makes sense. And I think that growth mindset that you mentioned, Alison, it plays a huge role, because for me, the key is to always keep moving, always keep, don't stop. Just, I wouldn't say don't give up. Maybe it sounds a bit cliche, because you often feel like giving up in this journey, but just keep going. Just do these small steps. I also love this other Chinese proverb, which it's in my TEDx talk, which says that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one single step. And I do believe that each step we take is just a part of a bigger journey. So this growing and learning and doing something meaningful is very important. Meaningful for yourself in the first place.
When I do love that expression. I think I've heard it before, but I definitely heard it in your talk. But just started with one step. So sometimes people see the journey as being exhausting before they even started, and without even starting to take those steps. So if you have somebody that is in that situation where they're like, okay, I'm going to start, and they update their resume, they throw a couple ideas out there, like they connect with a couple people and they get some good traction, just say like maybe an interview or conversations, and they hit their first wall. So the people that are like right at their fingertips that they know their companies aren't hiring. How do you get a client to stay like in that leadership of their own lives, so they don't lose themselves and feeling like I don't have anything out? They make their world feel really small. So how do you get them inspired to lead themselves, to kind of keep taking steps down that path to finding the most ideal thing for them?
Mm-hmm. So is this basically about not giving up along the way?
Probably. Like I think, like the first wall to me is like that first feeling of like, oh, I don't know where to go. And they may be giving up. They may have their first like towel that starts getting thrown in, but you want to keep them, keep networking, or keep, try something new or learn something, like keep inspired to stay towards it.
I think this was the key phrase, what you said, where do I want to go? And I think that's where we start. Actually, we need to understand, where do we want to go, and why do we want to do this? Why is this important to us? And once you really come down to the core of that question, why is this important for me? Why do I need to do this? What are the values that are involved in here that I'm favoring or I'm sacrificing, I'm compromising on. This is where this all inner kind of motivation comes from. That's how I see it, because this transformation, this reinventing yourself, it's something that perhaps the impulse is coming from outside, but it's something that should happen inside of you, and then it should translate back, to the outside, because it's really not about doing some things differently, but it's about becoming someone. So it happens on, it's my understanding, it happens on so many different levels. And you mentioned, I think, looking in the mirror, it starts, sometimes I do this exercise with myself as well. And I also advise to my clients to do it. When you look in the mirror, who do you see? And as now I'm on my journey back, I would say back, not back, but forward, but back to professional life, right? I often do this. I look at myself and I say, so who do you see? Do you see a stay-at-home mom, or do you see a coach? Or and all this non-verbal communication, it matters a lot. But it comes from inside. It comes from who do you really not think, you believe you are.
I think that's it's such a beautiful thing that we have to kind of honor, like how you said what you said is like really looking in the mirror and believing in who you are and shaping your story is so important. And I can understand why you got into coaching, like just your story, your kindness as you're kind of sharing what you're sharing, and just like the examples you gave. I think it's fantastic that you got into coaching. And for those of you that are, And I'm not sure I recognize, how long have you been coaching? When did you start the practice?
Well, it's been more than 4 years now. And I want to say something about getting into coaching. And it's also something that I think I mentioned, but I do believe that all our past experiences, no matter how irrelevant we think they are, they all matter and they all come together once. They all, like Steve Jobs in his famous, commencement speech at Stanford, I think, he spoke about all the dots getting connected one day. And I truly, truly believe in this approach and in this philosophy. And for me, coaching was this one place where all my past experiences, all my strengths, I can say so, all my values came together. And I do believe that every woman, and not only women, also I had also some men who were in this situation. There are much less. It's still more women who kind of sacrifice is not the right word, but who kind of compromise on their careers. But there are also men like that, in that very situation. So I do believe that everyone can find this perfect spot where they can be the leaders of their life, and they can really move forward. There is also another way, actually, if we have time. I even printed out this. There is a Japanese concept which is called Ikigai, and this is another way of looking at this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but the Ikigai is this spot in the middle where basically your passion, your mission, your profession and vocation, they all meet. together.
Mhm.
So because it's something that you love doing, it's something that you are good at, it's something that the world needs, and it's something that you can be paid for. Actually, this all four, there is a place where all these four things meet. Because if you gear towards one pole or the other, there will be always some kind of dissatisfaction. So
Right.
if you do a job that pays well, but you don't enjoy it, it's not aligned with any of your values, any of your mission in this life. So that will not give you satisfaction in a long run. Or if you do something that you really love, but it doesn't pay, it can be a good hobby, but it will not, again, in the long run, it's not something very sustainable. And I'd like to say that for all those people who had this gap, perhaps this is a good opportunity to just stop for a second and to really find this Ikigai, find this, it's a chance to take that pause and to find something that we really, really enjoy.
And that's another great way of saying it, is that taking an opportunity when you do have a gap to just kind of level set and be like, well, what do I want? It doesn't have to be based on the past. So I'm enjoying this conversation. We're at the 30-minute mark. So we want to ask you, if somebody did want to get in touch with you, what's the best approach to reach out to you?
Well, it's very simple. I'm not very sophisticated at this. It's either LinkedIn or Facebook. I have, my name is Asya Grigoryan, and if anybody would like to reach out, I'd be happy to be in touch and be connected. And I just like to mention that if it's for coaching, my first session is always free, and it's not a 15-minute discovery call. It's just a full 1 hour or 1.5, whatever it takes, just to understand, if this is what you need, if we are right fit for each other. I'm just more than happy to do that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I have a website too, but to be honest, it's not very, I'm not very active with that.
Well, it's funny because we love coaching, but nobody really likes the technology part of it. We like the conversation.
No. This is a learning curve. Yeah. So we need to become entrepreneurs as well. That's
great. Well, Allison we'll say goodbye to those on Facebook. And if you're live with us, you're always welcome to stay in the after show, and you can ask some more questions directly if you want. So with that, thank you so much. It has been truly better together.
Thank you.